Now, continuing on my grading here of One Piece arcs, the next arc that I wanted to discuss is Whole Cake Island. I'm jumping ahead here, 800 episodes, but I wanted to go through this arc because this is the most recent arc that I finished only a week ago, and I want to discuss it while it's still pretty fresh in my mind. So coming into Whole Cake Island, my expectations were very, very high. However, I felt like it came up pretty flat, and I was left disappointed with Whole Cake. All in all, I thought the pacing was brutally slow. I thought that it really didn't do much to push the story forward, and I'm pretty biased toward a strong antagonist. I felt like the antagonists in this lacked any depth or complexity. So elaborating more now on Big Mom being a weak antagonist, because I do think this might be a take that gets me a little bit of hate. I just don't think her character was very interesting. Right from the get-go, there was nothing in her backstory that explained why she became the way that she is. Her entire childhood, she was just a bad person with no self-control. She spews this stuff about how she wants a island full of peace, an island without hatred, but she's the worst human being of all of them. She hates her own family. She killed her own family. She's treats them like shit. I just don't understand what made her character become that way, and it seemed like it's just who she is. So to me, it just seemed like it was lazy writing. And then moving on from Big Mom to Katakuri, this is a character where I found myself wanting to know more about him. And for how poorly the arc was paced, I was really disappointed that I didn't get more of a backstory on him, because I felt like his backstory probably had a lot of promise. My interpretation of him is that he probably had a really shitty childhood growing up with Big Mom, and he was looked at as the protector of the family. You could see that in how his siblings treated him. But I don't want to leave that up to interpretation. I would rather see his backstory and see what made him who he is. Because even at the end, he starts to kind of turn on Big Mom a little bit and hope that Luffy comes back. And now moving on to my last big negative of the arc, I found Luffy insufferable for almost 80% of this arc. Now again, he's one of my favorite characters in the whole show. I thought he had a few really cool honorable moments, especially at the end when he punched Sanji as a way to let him know, hey, it's over. We're square. But watching him fight Cracker, watching him fight Katakuri, I was losing my mind, especially during the Cracker fight where he had no real plan, and it seemed like every fight he was in, he was getting his ass kicked, but the plot holes came through, making me feel like there were no real stakes throughout much of this arc. Now, I'd be remiss not to talk about the glaringly obvious positives throughout this arc. Number one being this guy right here, Sanji. This was an arc that centered around the concept of family structures. You know, who is your true family? Is it your blood, or is it the people that love and support you unconditionally? And throughout much of this, Sanji knows who it is, but other characters, especially the antagonists, they grow up in these awful families, and you can see why they become the monsters they are. Sanji should have become that monster, but he put that behind him, and he found the people that brought the best out in him. So watching him grow in this arc and continuously doing the morally right thing time after time after time, when all the chips were stacked against him from his first breath of life, it was truly inspiring to watch. And he saved this arc from, in my opinion, being very, very mediocre. And then quick note here before I keep speaking too much, the fight between Brook and Big Mom during Whole Cake Island, animation-wise, my favorite fight to date throughout all 800 some episodes that I've seen. So all in all, I give this arc a B-. I thought it could have been better. I thought the story left me wanting a lot more, especially from the antagonists. But when you're watching this arc, you're watching it to see Sanji's great backstory and his beautiful character development.